What's up, YouTube family? It's Andrea here at VW Family Farm, and today we are outside. It's a beautiful morning. Me and the kids are out here in the garden trying to get a little hoeing done because it is hot here in Arkansas, and so we're starting early trying to beat the heat. We were getting ready to come out here this morning, and I told the kids kind of our plan for the day. Sometimes we have what we call family meetings, and we sit down and kind of plan what all needs to take place that day. Then we kind of split up and divide and conquer. And as I was telling them that we need to come out here and whack some weeds out of the garden, it just got me to thinking. I was in the living room having my devotional time, and kind of after that telling them what we were going to do, and I just started thinking about some things, and it just dawned on me that maybe it was something that I could share with you guys. It's things that I was thinking in my private thoughts and that are going on with me personally, but I thought, you know, there may be others going on that are going through this too. So kind of what I was thinking about was weeds, and I know that's kind of funny, but I was thinking about, well, actually the kids asked me, they said, why do we have to go out and hoe the garden? Like, why do we keep doing this? Because it seems like we just did it the other day, but we keep having so much rain in Arkansas, the weeds keep coming back. But I was explaining to them, and honestly, sometimes people don't like for their kids to say, why are we doing that? But as long as they do it in a respectful way, I'm fine with them asking me why, because for one, sometimes I want them to know why we are doing this task. What is the importance of it? And so as I was explaining to them, you know, if you don't chop down some weeds in your garden, because I've had years where I've done that, and you let it get too far gone, the weeds take over, and all of a sudden you're growing weeds and you barely have any plants. I've been there and done that, and when you let it go for even a few weeks at a time, sometimes it's really hard to recover your garden. You start trying to hoe the whole thing out, and it's back-breaking, you're about to overheat. It becomes a huge task. But if you do it like once every week, or just go out there once a week and do what needs doing, don't do it just to be doing it, but do the rows that need it, it becomes manageable, because there's weeding involved in all styles of gardening. Even those that I have seen that have the Back to Eden method rocking, like they have it, it's beautiful, it's awesome. They still have to pull weeds sometimes. All types of gardening involves that. And so that got me to thinking about just life in general, because as y'all know, if you follow our channel, in this video, let me just put a disclaimer, is not going to be me changing camera angles a whole bunch of times and showing you what we're doing and all that. But if you can look behind me, usually I give a garden tour. Try to once a week or so show you what's growing. I'm going to show you what I'm going to be picking and all that. But you know what? I don't give y'all that garden tour before we work the garden. You get the garden tour after I've worked it. Or if I've got a pitiful looking plant, I might show it to you and say this one's struggling, but I don't go down there and highlight all the struggling plants. I show you the beauty of the garden and all the things that I'm loving and that are thriving and all that. So I just got to thinking, you know, pulling weeds, it's not fun, but it's necessary. And a lot of things that have been going on in our life lately have let a few weeds creep in. We've told you about all the problems we had doing the hay and all that, and we persevered through it. And a lot of y'all leave such encouraging comments to me about, I love your attitude, you're just a persevere, you just go get it done and all that, and you don't quit and all that. And while all that is true, a lot of times y'all don't see us at night when, like the other night when we had finished the baling, we finally completed. It took 6 days to complete the hay when it should have taken 2 to 3, something like that. But it took 6. And by the end of that, it was Monday night, Memorial Day, and Ben was gonna have to get up at 5 o'clock to go to work the next day. And we were tired. And we were snapping at each other for no reason. We had the job complete at that point. We had made it. The Lord had helped us through it. But we had gotten tired. We were hot. It'd been a long process, frustrating a little bit. But when we finished, it felt so good. But then we come home and we're so tired, we start snapping at each other. And so that's just the reality of what's been going on around here. The next morning came, the sun came up again, and we all said, you know what, I'm sorry for being crabby last night. I love you guys. We try to do that. We try to, even if we get fussy with each other, we try to admit it and say, I'm sorry, and say, you know what, I love you, and I'm sorry I treated you that way. It's just something we've tried to teach the kids. I know some people don't believe that, you know, you should ever tell your kids you're wrong. I said it, so I'm sticking to it. But I don't know, that's just not how we've decided to do it. Like, if we're wrong, I want to tell the kids, hey, I was wrong. I shouldn't have talked to you that way. I shouldn't have snapped at you. That wasn't your fault. I was crabby about something else, and I took it out on you. Because I don't want them to grow up to think you never admit that you're wrong. Because that's really not a good quality that I want them to take from me. You know what I mean? So, all that to say, I've been thinking lately, I felt a sense of not stress and anxiety, but more like overwhelmed. That's kind of how I get. I get to a point where I feel like the to-do list is this long and I've got this much time. And I know all the steps, like prioritize, do what has to be done. We do that. So that's how we function around here, because we hardly ever have time where there's nothing that is pressing that has to be done. There's usually something. Now, it might be minimal things that have to be done that day and we pretty much get a day off, but there's hardly ever time where it's like, there's nothing to do. What in the world are we gonna do? There's always something to do. So I've been dealing with that a lot lately, like feeling like with all the problems we had with the first cutting of hay, and we're not even done with the first cutting, we're done with that section, but we've got about 35 more acres to do to be done with the first cutting. And then in 6 to 8 weeks, we're gonna do it all again. And about 2 months after that, we're gonna do it all again. And so all these problems we had the first time and it taken 6 days, my mind is just reeling. I'm getting overwhelmed thinking, we can't do this. So I'm starting to let doubt creep in, and I'm a believer, and so I'm serious. The devil starts creeping into my thoughts saying, you can't do this. What are you thinking? You can't do this while Ben has a job, and you've got to homeschool, and you've got to milk cows, and you've got the garden, and then when the tomatoes get ready, you're gonna have 50 million tomatoes, and you can't do all this. What were you thinking? And so that starts going through my mind. And then I just have to take a second. So, and then I start thinking about verses in the Bible, and I want to read you one of them. Lamentations 3:40 says, let us examine our ways and test them, and let us return to the Lord. There's a whole lot of verses about examining yourself. It says in James 1, do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. It says, anyone who listens to the word and does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in a mirror and after looking at himself goes away and forgets what he looks like. And so that's where I've come back to. That's where I got to yesterday. And what's crazy is all the hay for that first little round is done. We're not in the middle of it having a problem. It's after the fact that I start thinking, we can't really do this. What are we gonna do now? We're in this pickle, we got all these cows and all this hay we need to get done and all that. When really, if I stop and examine myself, the Lord brought us through it. We made it through all of the trials of the hay. Now the equipment's probably good to go. Ben's fixed the bugs, hopefully. And so that's where I come back to with the weeds. If I let those weeds keep growing, just like in the garden, if I let the weeds of doubt and fear and anxiety and things like that, if I keep giving them the things they need to grow, just like if you give weeds and plants alike dirt and water and sun, if I give those things to the weeds in the form of giving my thoughts to it, giving my time and my stress to it, they're gonna keep growing until one day I'm gonna look up and the weeds are gonna have choked out some good things in my life. And I don't want that. I don't wanna find myself full of worry and doubt and fear that keeps me from doing things, and full of just anxiety all the time, until I look up one day and I've turned people away around me because of my negativity, or because of I've led by example and led my children to be like that, to sit around and feel sorry for themselves, or to doubt all the time or to worry all the time, because worry was something I struggled with as a young person. And worry, just like a lot of other things, can completely take over your life. You can be afraid of everything and everything that might possibly happen. And that's what I grew up with, was a lot of fear. And my parents didn't teach me that. I was just that way. But I've had to overcome it as an adult. And I don't ever want to let that weed of worry take over my life again. I mean, you can worry about anything from the weather to illness to things that might happen in the future, things that might not happen in the future, all those things. And I want to be someone who is pleasurable to be around, and when they look at me, they see joy and they see Jesus. That's what it all boils down to for me. But in order for those things to happen and me to cultivate the good things, every so often I've got to stop and examine myself, just like I examine the garden. When I go by it, I examine it and think, yep, we need to get out there and weed. I got to do that to myself and say, you know what? That weed needs to be chopped down. I need to get that out, and I need to stop it right now. So that's just things I've been thinking about. I hope it speaks to you too, and just if it's something you're struggling with that you can get out, get it out. And I am not saying just, if you have anxiety, just stop it. I'm not saying that, because you know what? Sometimes that is just not possible. Sometimes we need a little help to get those weeds out of the garden. And there's no shame in that. So if you have to have some help with some of the weeds going on in your life, don't sweat it. Don't be ashamed of it. Sometimes we're strongest when we admit our weaknesses, because you know what? Your weaknesses and your weeds and my weaknesses and my weeds might be what someone else is struggling with, that they need a listening ear. They don't need someone to solve everything for them. They need someone who's walked in those shoes and had to chop those weeds down in their garden to be there for them. So I just encourage you today, find someone who needs a little help chopping weeds. Or just, if you can't chop them down, maybe just choking them back for a little while. Because you know what? That is the essence of the gospel to me, is ministering to those that are at their lowest and pointing them in the direction of the one who can help them. Because there's only so much we as humans can do, but God never fails us, and He will walk with us through anything we're going through. And He doesn't say that you won't go through anything, but He does say you will not go through anything alone. So I just encourage you today, I got to get out there and help those kids. Just remember, don't let the weeds take over. You chop those down and let the plants and the beauty flourish. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Love you, and God bless.